Albert Einstein, the German-born physicist whose theories of relativity revolutionized our understanding of space, time, and gravity, making him the most recognizable scientist in history. But this iconic image of the playful genius sticking his tongue out, it's actually a psychological defense mechanism. The man who unlocked the secrets of the universe was desperately trying to hide from the universe's attention. Behind that wild hair and mischievous smile was a mind so uncomfortable with human interaction that he described himself as a lone traveler who never belonged anywhere with my whole heart. Yet somehow, this profound social alienation enabled him to see patterns in reality that no one else could perceive. Today, we're going to decode the psychological profile of history's greatest physicist, and what we discover will revolutionize how you think about introversion, anxiety, and the hidden psychology of breakthrough thinking. I'm analyzing decades of biographical research, Einstein's personal letters, and modern psychological frameworks to reveal how social anxiety and extreme introversion became the foundation for world-changing scientific insights. If you're fascinated by the psychology of genius, hit that subscribe button. We're about to explore how psychological struggles can become your greatest strengths. We'll examine how Einstein's social discomfort protected him from conformity pressures, decode his extreme personality profile through the Big Five model, explore how his weird thinking patterns enabled revolutionary physics, uncover the psychological costs of his scientific obsessions, and discover what his story teaches us about transforming our own psychological quirks into creative advantages. Most people see Einstein as the absent-minded professor, the lovable genius who forgot to wear socks and played violin for relaxation. But this carefully constructed public image hides a psychological reality that's far more complex and, honestly, far more relatable than you might expect. In his private letters, Einstein revealed crushing social anxiety and profound loneliness. He wrote, "I am truly a lone traveler and have never belonged to my country, my home, my friends, or even my immediate family with my whole heart." This wasn't just poetic melancholy. This was someone describing genuine psychological alienation. That famous wild hair? Einstein deliberately messed it up before meeting reporters. The tongue-out photo? A calculated moment of self-deprecation to deflect serious questions. His entire eccentric professor persona was a sophisticated psychological shield designed to protect his sensitive nervous system from overwhelming social demands. While the world saw a confident genius revolutionizing physics, Einstein was actually living with what we'd now recognize as social anxiety disorder. He found crowds overwhelming, avoided public events whenever possible, and needed extensive solitude to think clearly. Yet this same social discomfort created the psychological conditions that enabled his revolutionary insights. The first major revelation: Einstein's breakthrough thinking wasn't just about intelligence. It was about having a mind so uncomfortable with social conventions that it naturally questioned everything others took for granted. His social anxiety wasn't a limitation. It was a cognitive advantage that protected him from groupthink and conventional wisdom. To understand Einstein's adult psychology, we have to go back to Munich in the 1880s, where a young Albert sat in rigid German classrooms, feeling like his mind was being crushed. Einstein later described his school years as feeling like living in a barracks, and this psychological trauma shaped everything that came after. Einstein's parents, Hermann and Pauline, were supportive but not overprotective. They encouraged his curiosity while allowing significant independence. From an attachment theory perspective, this created a secure but fiercely autonomous psychological foundation. Confidence combined with self-reliance that would enable him to challenge scientific authority throughout his career. But the most psychologically significant event happened when Einstein was 15. His family's financial struggles forced them to move to Italy, leaving Albert behind in Munich to finish school. The psychological impact of this separation, feeling abandoned while trapped in an educational system he despised, created lasting patterns of emotional self-protection. His relationship with his sister Maya became psychologically crucial. She was his closest confidant and intellectual companion, establishing Einstein's pattern of forming deep, meaningful connections with very few people while maintaining distance from broader social circles. This selective intimacy would characterize all his relationships. But when Einstein finally dropped out of the Munich gymnasium to reunite with his family, he was making a psychological choice that defined his entire approach to life: personal authenticity over social expectations. This early decision to prioritize inner truth over external approval became the psychological foundation for every revolutionary idea he would later propose. Even as a teenager, Einstein preferred internal mental experiments to external social activities. His famous question, "What would I see if I traveled alongside a beam of light?" emerged from a mind more comfortable exploring abstract relationships than human ones. This psychological orientation toward internal processing over external validation was essential for his later breakthroughs. Let's decode Einstein's personality using the Big Five model and prepare to be amazed by how extreme his psychological profile really was. Openness to experience. Einstein was literally off the charts, probably in the 99th percentile. But this wasn't just intellectual curiosity. This was a mind capable of questioning the fundamental nature of reality itself. His thought experiments required psychological comfort with ideas that seemed impossible or absurd to everyone else. Conscientiousness. Here's where it gets interesting. Einstein was extremely conscientious about scientific work, but completely disorganized in daily life. He could work obsessively for months on physics problems while forgetting appointments, losing keys, and wearing mismatched socks. This selective conscientiousness reveals someone whose psychological energy was entirely channeled toward intellectual pursuits. Extroversion. Einstein was in the 10th percentile, meaning 90% of people are more socially oriented than he was. But this extreme introversion wasn't shyness. It was a fundamental need for solitude to process complex ideas. His famous walks around Princeton, often lasting hours, weren't just exercise. They were psychological necessities for creative thinking. Agreeableness. Einstein was in the 30th percentile, meaning he was more willing than most people to disagree and challenge authority. This psychological disagreeableness was essential for revolutionary science. He could reject the greatest minds of his era when their ideas conflicted with his insights. You can't revolutionize physics by being agreeable. And eroticism. Einstein was in the 65th percentile, experiencing significant anxiety and periodic depression. But here's the crucial part. This emotional sensitivity provided the psychological fuel for his intellectual intensity. His anxiety about social situations drove him to spend more time alone thinking, while his sensitivity to inconsistency motivated his search for unified theories. This extreme personality profile created both Einstein's genius and his struggles. His psychological makeup was perfectly designed for revolutionary thinking, but poorly suited for ordinary human interactions. He needed elaborate coping mechanisms, humor, deliberate eccentricity, selective social engagement, to manage the tension between his inner intellectual world and external social demands. Now let's examine Einstein's behavioral patterns because they reveal psychological motivations that drove both his scientific breakthroughs and personal struggles. Einstein's daily walks weren't just physical exercise, they were psychological necessities. Walking provided a rhythmic, meditative state that allowed his unconscious mind to work on complex problems while his conscious mind relaxed. Many of his breakthrough insights reportedly came during these solitary walks, when his introverted mind could process information without social distractions. His romantic relationships reveal someone whose psychological investment in intellectual pursuits left limited emotional resources for intimate partnerships. His first marriage to Mileva Maric dissolved partly because he needed so much solitude for thinking that he became emotionally unavailable. His second marriage to his cousin Elsa worked better because she understood and protected his need for psychological space. Einstein's relationship with his children, particularly his son Edward, who developed schizophrenia, reveals the psychological cost of his intellectual focus. His difficulty dealing with emotional chaos and unpredictability created distance from family problems, generating guilt and stress that further motivated his escape into scientific work. His later political activism, advocating for civil rights and nuclear disarmament, represents an attempt to resolve psychological tension between his social isolation and moral concerns. Einstein felt guilty about his detachment from human suffering, so he tried to contribute through public positions rather than personal relationships. His famous rejection of quantum mechanics, God does not play dice, was partly psychological rather than purely scientific. Einstein's need for certainty and order conflicted with quantum theory's probabilistic nature. His personality required a universe governed by elegant, deterministic laws rather than random probabilities. His 30-year quest for a unified field theory, which ultimately failed, reveals someone psychologically driven to find ultimate patterns and connections. Having revolutionized physics twice, Einstein may have felt compelled to achieve one more breakthrough, even as the scientific landscape shifted beyond his conceptual framework. So, what can Einstein's psychological profile teach us about creativity, innovation, and managing our own minds? The lessons are both inspiring and practical. First lesson, embrace productive solitude. Einstein's need for extensive alone time wasn't antisocial, it was essential for deep thinking. Modern innovators can learn that solitude isn't isolation, but a necessary condition for creative breakthrough. If you're introverted, stop apologizing for needing alone time and start protecting it as your most valuable resource. Second, develop psychological comfort with disagreement. Einstein's low agreeableness allowed him to challenge any assumption or authority. Modern creators need similar psychological independence from social validation. Revolutionary thinking requires the courage to appear wrong or foolish while you're developing breakthrough ideas. Third, channel anxiety productively. Einstein's neuroticism provided emotional energy for sustained intellectual work. Rather than eliminating anxiety entirely, modern innovators can learn to transform it into creative fuel. Your sensitivity and worry might be cognitive advantages disguised as psychological problems. Fourth, practice selective focus. Einstein's ability to ignore social expectations and daily practicalities while maintaining laser focus on important problems was crucial for his achievements. Modern creators need similar psychological boundaries to protect their most important work from social noise and trivial obligations. Final lesson, balance independence with strategic collaboration. While Einstein was profoundly introverted, he maintained crucial intellectual relationships that supported his work. Finding the right balance between solitude and collaboration, deep alone time plus selective, meaningful connections, is essential for sustained creative achievement. Einstein's psychological profile reveals one of history's most fascinating paradoxes. A man so uncomfortable with human attention that he became humanity's most famous scientist. Someone so alienated from ordinary social experience that he discovered universal principles governing all experience. We've seen how extreme introversion enabled revolutionary thinking, how social anxiety protected him from conformity pressures, how psychological disagreeableness allowed paradigm-shifting insights, and how his emotional sensitivity fueled scientific intensity. Einstein's story reminds us that psychological differences, introversion, anxiety, unconventional thinking, aren't limitations to overcome, but potential advantages to understand and channel productively. His greatest breakthroughs came not from fitting in socially, but from thinking independently. If you found Einstein's psychological profile fascinating, you'll love my analysis of how Nikola Tesla's obsessive behaviors enabled world-changing inventions, or my deep dive into Leonardo da Vinci's ADHD and how it powered Renaissance innovation. What aspects of Einstein's psychology resonate with your own creative process? Are you more comfortable thinking alone or collaborating with others? Do you use anxiety as creative fuel or does it hold you back? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to understand the hidden psychology behind history's greatest minds, subscribe and hit that notification bell. I'm constantly researching how psychological quirks become creative superpowers. Your next breakthrough might be just one insight away from understanding your own mind. Thanks for joining me on this exploration of Einstein's mind. Remember his words, the important thing is not to stop questioning. Until next time, keep questioning everything, especially your assumptions about what makes minds extraordinary.